Welcome to this video. I have finally compiled a list of all of the books that I've read in 2024. That's why you're here. Just a little bit of background. My name is Chloe. I read a lot of books and I like to chat about it. So welcome. If you like that kind of stuff and you like those sorts of videos, subscribe. So let's just get into the video because I think that it's going to take a while to get through everything. I'm not going to go like necessarily in the order that I read them because sometimes I like took a break from some series and then finished them later on. And I think it would probably make more sense if I just told you about the series that I finished. You know, we'll get to it. The other thing to note is that I read a lot on Kindle. So the books that I showed you earlier are not all of the books that I read. Nowhere close. I read either 111 books in 2024 or I read 113 books. There's a discrepancy and I don't really know why. I don't know if I should trust it because Goodreads is telling me I read 113. My notes app is telling me that I read 111. So I don't know. I think the two that I'm missing are Assistant to the Villain, and I swear I read that in 2024. The other one, I think, Daisy Jones and the Six. I don't know. I swear I read that in like April of 2024 because I was like on the way to a business retreat and I was listening to it. And I guess I just didn't write it down because I swear I read it last year. Anyway, let's go through this list. I have everything in my Notion. I went through it yesterday to double check that I didn't miss anything. Who knows about those two books? The first books that we're going to talk about are ones that I don't have in print. I read them on Kindle. They are the Windsor series. So I started with the first two books in that series in 2023 and I finished the series in 2024. So I read the last four books and those are The Unwanted Marriage, The Broken Vows, The Secret Fiancé, and The Devious Husband. They started to get repetitive. I really enjoyed the first couple of books because it was new and it's like a billionaire romance. It was a lot of fun, but then it just felt very copy-paste and that started to annoy me. There was one book in there I think that I'm being generous on with a rating because I'm going back and thinking about it and it just pissed me off so much. It crossed the lines for me personally. Not a fan. The next two books I read, Addicted to You and Ricochet by Krista and Becca Ritchie. These were largely influenced because Destiny Sidwell has read the books and she has loved them. I just don't think that they're really for me. I liked them. I did. Even though I gave them both a 4 out of 5 stars, I may go back and read them again, but if I do, I'm going to have to be like in a very specific mood for them. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. It's a very literary fiction. It deals with addiction. The next book that I read was Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This was one, I love Carrie Maniscalco with the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. So I went into Stalking Jack the Ripper. I actually really did like it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's just that it's a YA and it's kind of like a historical fiction type of deal. And I picked up the first book and then just never read the rest of them. Will I get to them this year? Maybe. The next book that I read was actually my first 5-star read, and looking back, it's kind of crazy, but it's Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. I think that there has been a lot of hate for this book in the booktok community, and I can totally understand why. I think that this book just hit at the right time for me. I also think that it kind of gets a bad rap because it talks about COVID and like going through that, and like I think that that's kind of traumatic for a lot of people and they don't like thinking about it and they don't like rehashing the feelings that came up with that. Totally valid. I thought it was really funny though. It's about a comedy writer and for like a show kind of like SNL. And I just thought it was funny. I thought it was interesting. It's about a couple that's older, which typically I'm kind of about, but I just really enjoyed it. I don't know. It was a 5-star feeling for me. Looking back, kind of crazy, but I'm rolling with it. From there, I read ACOTAR, all 5 books. I feel like they're talked about so much that I don't think that I need to say anything more about them. If you haven't picked up any of the Sarah J. Maas books, I would recommend them. I had a good time. I did not like them as much as Throne of Glass, but I still really loved them. From there, I read the Crescent City series because this was around whenever the 3rd book came out in January. So I read the first 2 books. I gave those 5 out of 5 stars. I know. The 3rd book, I did give a 4 out of 5 stars. There's just something about it. I know there's a lot of hate that it gets because there's so much information thrown at you from the get-go. I get it. It's confusing. There's a lot. I just love the world. I thought it was fun. The side characters, all of the everything going on. I think knowing what Sarah J. Maas did in the Throne of Glass series and how everything loops together in that storyline, I have faith that Crescent City is going to do that. Am I holding out hope for something that is not guaranteed? Yeah. And what about it? The next book that I read, I think is the only self-help book that I got to last year. I remember almost nothing from it. It's You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know. I remember almost nothing. The next book was my first Abby Jimenez book. That's Yours Truly, and I gave that a 5 out of 5 stars. I read some more of her books later on. Did I read 1 or 2 more? Maybe just 1. I can't remember. We'll go through the list, but she's one of my favorite authors at this point. She writes, I think, mental health so well, and I just feel really seen whenever I'm reading her books. I love the couples. I love the chemistry that they have together, and I just feel like she's writing the perfect love story with real life people in her books. Happy Place by Emily Henry. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm so scared of you Emily Henry people. I don't know what it is. I think because people are so diehard fans of her that I'm a little scared. I just didn't really like it. I thought it was a little bit boring. I didn't really understand the point. I didn't really like the couple. I didn't really like the characters. It was good enough that I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I just don't know that I would recommend it to everyone. Is that crazy to say? I don't know. Please don't hate me. Following that up with like a mafia romance and still rating those as 3 out of 5 stars is also insane. But I did it. I can't remember what this series was called, but there's 4 books, I think. Hate, Liar, Fake, and Kate by Tate James. This was at a point last year where I just wanted like a fun read. It didn't have to have great writing. These did not have great writing. Kind of like a bully romance. I don't know. It kind of hit the right points. I'm not mad at it. I'm not really necessarily gonna like scream from the rooftops that it was incredible. I'm realizing that I have not picked up a single physical book that I have. So, pause. Let me just show you my physical copies, the special editions from Barnes & Noble of Crescent City. They only had the first 2 out of those. I'm waiting for the 3rd one. I don't know why that hasn't been published yet. I would expect it to be soon though. I don't know, but I love these editions. And then obviously I have the 3rd book in hardcover. Not the biggest fan of that. My ACOTAR books, I'm missing one. My sister is borrowing it and she has been for like 8 months. There's not really a rush. I don't plan on rereading them, but still. Every time I look at my shelf and I'm missing it, it kind of drives me up a wall. And then I have romantic comedy. I actually love the cover of this one. Okay, now we're gonna get back on track. I will show you the physical book if I have it and I remember. The next book, Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I love an Ali Hazelwood book. I love a STEM read. I think these books are so much fun. I don't care what she's writing. I'm gonna be reading it at this point. Do I remember what was in this book versus the other ones? No. Like all of the titles sound the same to me. There's like Love Hypothetically, there's Love Theoretically, there's Not in Love, there, you know, like they all just kind of sound the same and I get them all mixed up. I do remember the storyline, I just don't remember which one this was. So the next book that I read was King of Pride by Anna Wang. I think it's Anna Wang. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing anything. And listen, this was like the 3rd chance that I've given this author and I just really don't think that it's for me. I don't know what it is. I think it just comes off as like a corny cliche type of writing. I never think that the main characters have chemistry. It just feels very lusty, and which is sometimes fine and I will go for. But in these books, I just haven't liked them enough to want to pick up another one. So with this one, I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. But again, I just don't think that I'm ever going to go for those books. I'm sorry. I obviously was on like a little bit of a romance kick with these. I read The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? This was my introduction to Ashley Poston. I was astonished. I loved that book so much. I recommend it to literally everyone. I let my grandma read it. Which really isn't saying much because I let my grandma read almost anything that I have. She loves to read. But obviously that was a 5 out of 5 stars. I still think about that book to this day and I want to reread it. Again, Her Greatest Mistake by Hannah Cohen. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. This one did kind of drive me crazy because they kept pushing off being together was because of something that happened whenever they were younger. Literally, it would not have happened if they had just talked. Like, they would have had no issues. And the whole basis around this was like, they didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to talk about it until the very end. And then they were like, oh, no, it's fine. Yeah. And then I read the Chestnut Spring series, the whole thing. One after another. I was on a cowboy kick for that, for sure. Overall, love the series, would definitely recommend. I remember there was one book in there, specifically Powerless. I wasn't the biggest fan of. I ended up giving that one a 3 out of 5 stars. The others I think I gave basically 4 out of 5 stars. That one, it just felt really random, I think, for the overall series to throw that one in, because technically this is about a character he's not really a cowboy. He's like a hockey guy, which isn't really like prominent in the story. It was just, I don't know. I didn't get it. It also felt very lusty compared to the other books, which do have spice in them. It just felt weird. I then listened to Carrie Soto is Back on, I think I listened to it in Spotify. Loved this book. I don't know what it is about Taylor Jenkins Reid, but she knows how to write very complicated characters in such a way that you're rooting for them, but like, you know that you probably wouldn't like them in real life. This one I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but it was more leaning towards like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this, and I would definitely consider rereading this in 2025. This is one of those books where you can't really explain what it was about. I think you just have to kind of go along for the ride. It's about a woman that's in tennis, but it's also about being a woman and about dealing with like media and like how you are portrayed to people, and the way you talk to people matters because you're a woman, and all of these sorts of things. It just brings out a lot of feelings. The next book I read, Caught Up by Liz Tom Ford. This was a 5 out of 5 for me. I loved the main male character. I think that she does such a great job of writing her male characters. I don't know what it is, but they always are just so diehard for the main female character. Okay, I'm bringing out my reading journal that I stopped writing in because I know that I wrote something about this in here. I really want to get back to this. I'm gonna make one for next year, or for this year. For 2025. Genuinely enjoyed seeing them struggle at first, but then found ways to overcome their problems. Such an amazing story, and it takes a village. The next one was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. This felt so different from the first book in the series. This was the second, right? Yeah. I kind of missed the dynamic from the side characters that the first book brought, but it made sense for these characters. And I loved that there wasn't so much a focus on like getting the characters together. I think the author focused a lot on like personal growth and then also bringing them together. And I just enjoyed that a lot. Also Russ. Oh, you beautiful man. From there, I read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. This was like a YA romance. I haven't read too many YA romances lately, and I don't see myself really gravitating towards them, but I did have a good time with this one. This was a 3 out of 5 stars for me. It just wasn't like exceptional, I would say, but again, I think that I can kind of chalk that up to like YA. I think it had like a lot of high school struggles that I think we can all kind of remember, but you're definitely rooting for the main characters. So the next 2 books were very, I don't want to say woman-centered or like woman empowerment, but I feel like they just did such a great job of showcasing the things that women go through and the community that we have with each other. That sounds very serious coming from like the books that I've been talking about. The first one was Wayward by Amelia Hart. This was her debut book, I think, and knocked it out of the park. Both of them were a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. So close to a 5-star. Wayward, I didn't feel too connected to the characters at first, but it definitely progresses as you get through the book. I think it did a great job of showing how much women have struggled through the ages and the things that we still struggle with, but showcasing how we can overcome the things that we're up against. The next one was The Grace Year by Kim Leggett. Again, 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was very, if you've read Lord of the Flies and the chaos with that, this was very reminiscent of that, but like with women instead and girls. But even more kind of gruesome and horrifying. I think it shows how much women are pitted against each other in society. This one was very reflective of society in general, I think. Just looking back, a lot of things that happen in this book are infuriating. it's so incredible how books like this can make you feel so many strong things, and it just relates to our world right now, like what we're living in. If you get a chance to read them, highly, highly, highly recommend. And to go like the completely opposite way, the next book that I read was Psycho Shifters by Jasmine Moss. This was a 2 out of 5 stars for me. I thought that the writing was really bad. She redeems herself later on in the year, the author. This one I just really didn't like. I honestly don't even remember a whole lot about it. I just remember thinking that the writing was really bad. I didn't feel anything about the characters. I just felt like I just didn't like it. And then these are embarrassing because if you read them, I don't remember what the series is called, but the first book is The Female. The second one is Her Males. The third one is Their War. It's by M.V. Wright. This is one that I would not let my grandma read. That should say something to you. Okay, so the writing, not fantastic, but I had a decent time reading them. Did the plot at the end literally make next to no sense? Yeah, and that let me down. But it was a good time in the middle of all of it. Oh, the series is called The Female. It's about like the human race is like dying out because women are no longer being born. So other species are taking over, and the main female character, who's a human woman, is bought by a couple other species. There's a demon, Anyway, if you're into that, read the books and let me know what you think. From there, I read In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. I've seen this book kind of lots of places. It's kind of been like in the back of my mind to get to reading it. This was so cute. It was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. It was like kind of randomly smutty in there. Like I'm thinking of one particular spice scene because I don't think it was overrun with spice. It was just like when the main spice scene hit, it was kind of like, where did this come from? You know? Love the small town feel, like a single dad trope. I love that. I thought it was really cute. The next 2 books I read were Shatter, Vow, and Monstrous Power by Eva Chase. First one was a 3 out of 5 stars. The second was a 2 out of 5 stars. This was like a weird, I don't even know. If you have read Maximum Ride by James Patterson, that series, I grew up on it. I loved it. Looking back, it had a lot of plot holes and went on way too long. This was reminiscent of that, but like them grown up. People who have powers and are like held in a facility by people. Here's the thing. The plot makes 0 sense. That's why I gave up on it. Wouldn't recommend. Don't read it. Then I read 3 of the books in the Broken Kingdom series by L.J. Andrews. I was loving these. I was really into it. And then I think the 3rd book, something happened in the 3rd book that kind of annoyed me and I just didn't pick up the rest of them. I think that I'll go back to it. It's just that, I don't know, I kind of lost steam. The first 2 books I gave it 4 to 5 stars. The 3rd one I gave it 4.5. So I don't even know. Does that even make any sense? I don't know why I never picked those back up. Now that I'm thinking about it, I should go back and read the rest of those. I'm so bad at this. I keep forgetting about the physical books. Here's the do-over. There's also not a great way to do this in this chair. The Gray Seer, great. Wayward, great. Wildfire, great. Moving on. Then I read Binding 13 and Keeping 13. I gave it the first one a 3 out of 5 stars. The second one was better. It was a 4 out of 5 stars. And I know in my last reading vlog, I talked about a series that I love, and it kind of reminds me of Binding 13. I don't know. I just don't. It's good. I just don't know that I'll continue the series. The next book that I read, I don't remember. It's called Icing It by Emma Fox. This was a 1 out of 5 stars. I think that I was going to DNF this. This was around a time when I was DNFing a lot of books. It just seemed like I couldn't find anything good to read, and I just got fed up with it, and I powered through this one to read it, and it was still a 1 out of 5 stars. So, Love Redesign by Lauren Asher. This was a 4 to 5 stars for me. This was one where he was so down bad for her, and I love that in a romance. I also love Lauren Asher. The only thing that I don't like about her writing was when those F1 racing, that series, I could not stand. Everything else has been great from her. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just that I just wasn't a fan of the F1 racing. I don't know. I just didn't like the main male characters actually in those. Anyway, this one though was great. Then I read the Naturals series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This series was so fun, and I cannot recommend them enough. They're YA mystery. If Criminal Minds was like run by teenagers, that's what this would be. And it's just so good. I loved all of the characters. I thought they were so fun. I love all the dynamics between everyone. And it's just so good. The next book that I read was Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevins. This was a 3 to 5 stars for me. It took me a while to get through this book. It was a bit slow for me. I didn't really understand where we were going through a lot of this book. I was confused. Is it a romance? Is it just literary fiction? What are we trying to do? What's the plan here? But it felt kind of very nostalgic for me for the gaming references. And it was also emotional at a certain point, but it was weird because I wasn't emotionally connected to anything until like one particular scene happened, and it just felt kind of jarring. So the next book I read was The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This was a 3 to 5 stars for me. I thought this was so different from my type of reads typically. Definitely like a sci-fi sort of dystopian sort of read. It was a bit complicated as far as like getting a hold of how things work in this world and the sci-fi between it, because essentially the main character is like hopping between worlds, but it's like parallel universes as well. It was a very quick read though, even though it was a little bit confusing trying to like keep the parallel universes and the parallel timelines in check in your head. I thought it was so interesting and I thought it was really fun. The next book I read was Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. I think at this point I was just trying to find any more hockey romances that would just like hit the spot, and this one fell flat for me. It was a 2 out of 5 stars. I don't remember anything about it. From there, I started Zodiac Academy, and this has felt such a daunting read, but I finally got to starting it. And I read the first 6 books. A lot of the time I had to push through. It's very much like a fantasy bully romance. And sometimes I can deal with. Other times it's just like, what? Why am I rooting for you guys still? You know? Because the bully is not even bullying. Like, it's your enemies, your complete enemies trying to kill each other. You know? But the storyline and the plot and the world building and the characters and the fantasy element of it, I think just kept me coming back. I have not finished this series. Like I said, I got through book 6. I'm technically, I think, like halfway through of the 7th, but there's just a lot. It feels like we are repeating the same conflicts over and over and over again, and there's no progression. You know, it's just like we're thrown back and forth. We go a little bit forward and then we're thrown back again and again and again. And that's just frustrating. You know, I don't feel like this series needed to be nearly as long. Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. This was a 4 to 5 stars for me. This is part of the, like, a spin-off series because they're like the kids from the Briar U series that Elle Kennedy has, which I loved. I love this like thought process behind it. This book made a lot of sense. I enjoyed it. It's 4 to 5 stars. The next one that I read though, The Dixon Rule, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it literally did not make any sense. The Briar U campus series is about hockey for the most part. And then The Graham Effect, the first book in this new spinoff series, is about, it involves hockey. The Dixon Rule makes 0 sense because the characters have almost 0 relation or anything to do with the original series. I don't know. I don't understand these characters. I also did not understand the whole point of like the romance and the plot line. Some of it was funny, but for the most part, it just didn't make any sense. Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. This was a 4 to 5 stars for me. Part of this, the reason why it wasn't like anywhere close to a 5 out of 5 stars was because there's something to do with her like ex-best friend that I just really didn't like. I didn't like the conclusion that came from that. But otherwise, I thought that the main character was really cute and funny. I also thought that the end, there's another like weird random end scene and just felt really weird. The next book I read was Hope This Finds You Well. This was a 3 to 5 stars for me. It's by Natalie Sue. Oh, this was a funny concept. Basically, this girl is working in corporate America, and whenever someone pisses her off at work, she will write in her emails like what has pissed her off or like how stupid someone is or, you know, whatever, in an email to them but she will white out the words so that they can't read them. And then she's caught. It's a funny premise. A lot of the book was a little bit boring, and then there's a weird trope that's thrown in that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There is mental health representation in this, but yeah, I completely forgot about this until I read the summary again. Then I read Powerless, Powerful, and Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is another series that I feel like everyone and their mother has read and or has an opinion on. So I'm not going to go too deep into it. Powerless, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. To be honest, the novella was better than the first book, in my opinion. And then Reckless, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I think is a bit generous because there's literally no progression in the plot in the second book, which I found to be really annoying. There is a lot of banter and great chemistry between the two characters. It's just that I don't, like, is that enough to carry it through? It's definitely a YA book, but I don't know that that's a great excuse for no progression. And there's also obviously what everyone has been saying, and I agree. It does seem that it's heavily influenced by some, like, I would say classic YA reads. I'll just leave it at that. But I do think if this had been written like whenever I was in high school, I still would have eaten it up, you know? Then I read The Brothers Hawthorne and The Grandest Game. The Brothers Hawthorne, very confusing to me. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm very confused why this book exists. If anything, it should be a 150-page novella because it adds nothing to the overall story, and I'm really confused why it focuses on 2 of the brothers. It just, like, it adds in some more random side characters, and it's just really confusing, like, what? Why? As far as The Greatest Game goes, this felt much more Inheritance Games. I thought that this was much more fun. I was still confused in the beginning because I was still like, why are we still kind of in this world? I thought we wrapped it up with the trilogy. Like, what's the end goal here? And it dealt with characters that we didn't know. But I will say the ending kind of redeems it. It feels much more Inheritance Games, closer to the end. And it has, like, that feeling again. If they had been more clear, maybe around the marketing for this book and the series as a whole, I think it would have made a lot more sense. But I am interested in reading the next book. I already have it. I think it's Games Untold. So I'm interested to see kind of where that goes. But like, The Brothers Hawthorne is not really a part of this. Some of the characters that were introduced in here are in this, but it's like, this could have been either completely thrown out or just summarized into like 150 pages. Sue me. Moving on, I read Summer Hours. This is by Amy Mason Doan. This was a book that I have not seen anyone, anywhere, ever talk about. This I actually gave a 4 out of 5 stars. I think this is a good book for someone in their early 20s to read. I think it shows a lot about the mistakes we make in our lives, kind of just like going along for the ride, deciding like who you're going to be as a person. The writing in this did remind me of Tomorrow, I will say. So it was like a little bit slower, but I think it was better than Tomorrow. But the focus is not a romance or anything like that. Man, it's really hard to get in and out of this chair. Then I read Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood. This was a 3 out of 5 stars for me. I think this was much more, and I agree with a lot of what people have said, that it was much more lusty. However, I loved how the main female character in this book is just so like unapologetically herself. And I love that the main male character in this, he loves her for exactly who she is and where she's at in life. Love that. I read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Man, if you want to bawl your fucking eyes out, read this book. Especially if you have a sister. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. Maybe like a 4.5 even. It's just that it was a little bit slow for me, but that could be because it's like a historical fiction book. Very impactful. It definitely makes you think about the sacrifices that the women made within this time period, within this war. There's just points in this book that just tear your heart out. And I think that the author did such a good job of the research behind the book and the writing. The next book was Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Moss. This is a new series for her. She's the one that wrote Psycho Shifters, if I'm thinking correctly. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me though. I mean, the writing is still kind of reminiscent of Psycho Shifters in the fact that like it's not the best writing, but the main female character is very funny, very witty. I think that the storyline and the plot of this is going to be really interesting to follow whenever her next book comes out. I think in a couple of months. I'm not too sure, but I'm excited for it to come out. Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. This is like a spin-off series of Kingdom of the Wicked. This has to do with the other Princes of Hell. And I thought it was so much fun. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I love the characters in this. I loved seeing hints of the characters from the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. And I loved how this was different from the original as well. It was good. I don't want to ruin it for you, but I liked it a lot. I haven't read the Throne of Secrets? I don't know. But I've heard that it's good too, and I would like to pick that up this year. The next 3 books that I picked up on Kindle, Savage Bonds, Blood Bonds, and Forced Bonds. Oh, make that 4 because the next one was Tragic Bonds, and I read that as well. These were all kind of 3 out of 5 stars. This is similar in vibe to Zodiac Academy. It's a reverse harem, bully, romance, fantasy book. It is frustrating the series is so long for what's going on in the book. There's not like a whole lot of progression. Again, kind of like Zodiac Academy. But I think I'm so close to finishing it. I just want to finish it at this point. Overall, I think this series is like a 3 out of 5 stars. But it's good whenever you want something that's just like, kind of fun to read, you know? Then I read Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. This Lakefront Billionaires series, I'm enjoying a lot. I thought it was really cute. I did think that the dialogue sometimes was a little bit cringy and cliche, but I think it made up for it with the chemistry between the characters. I did not love how the main male character was such an asshole. I think that could have been toned down just a bit. But overall, I really enjoyed the book. Then I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. This is a book I think about almost every day. Loved it so much. I think that the main male character in this book is probably one of my top 10 book boyfriends. I think that the way that she writes characters in such an endearing, adorable, relatable, incredible way is what makes me love her book so much. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. Definitely an Omegaverse book, which I thought was funny, just because I haven't read one in a while, and it's nothing new to me, but I thought that the way she did it was very fun and lighthearted. Here's the thing, like, my sister read this book. She is not an Omegaverse girly. This was her first introduction. She had lots of questions. If you have not read an Omegaverse book before, listen, just go in with an open mind, okay? Go in for the vibes. That's all I'm gonna say. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and I'm hoping that there's a second book. There has to be a second book, right? The way she left off. That's what I'm thinking. Then I read Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I think I lent this out to one of my friends. This was not as good as 7 Year Slip. I think that it was weird because it didn't feel like a romance, even though it was like about romance characters. The romance in it felt like it came out of nowhere, which was really confusing, but I loved like the magical realism aspect of this one. Really, it's about this woman. She ends up in a random town, and within the random town, she finds out that all the people that live there are the characters in her favorite book series. So she gets to like meet her favorite characters in real life, and I just think that that's so much fun. You know, I just didn't understand the romance aspect of it. With Love from Cold World, this is by Alicia Thompson. This was a 3 out of 5 stars for me. I didn't really get the characters or why they were getting together. I liked them a lot as friends. Didn't really get them as a couple, but it was a fun read and it was pretty quick. The next one that I read was Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. Oh, here's what I had to say in my review. No, because Ford is the book boyfriend of all book boyfriends. The banter, the spice, binged. The next book that I read was Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle Laurie. Man, this one kind of annoyed the shit out of me. But I did end up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think that was generous because I thought that the main female character was kind of a moron and very incredibly annoying. And literally the third act breakup could have been completely avoided if she had said a sentence to her main male character. I don't know, call me crazy. Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark. These were a lot of fun. They're serial killer romance. You kidding? Yeah, sign me up. The first one I gave 4 out of 5 stars, and the second one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. This one made sense to me. This one, not so much. I thought that there was a lot of great banter between the two characters in this one, and I love the serial killer aspect. In Leather and Lark, it felt like the whole premise behind it was just completely unnecessary. And I don't like whenever, like in a series, when you have a side character in the first book become the main character in like the follow-up book. Why are they completely different people? Like they have completely different personalities from the first book. So it like defeats everything that you've built up in the first one, where you see like little glimpses of them and like little morsels of their personality that like are really intriguing, and then it's completely gone in their book. Don't do that to me, you know? Then I read Play Along by Liz Tomford. This is the Windy City series again. And I think where we went wrong with that one, I gave it a 3 to 5 stars. I think it was the woe is me aspect for the main male character. Like, oh, I have to be this funny guy because otherwise I'm not a great person. That just really killed me. I mean, that can be part of it, sure. But it was like every single sentence in this book for the first 50 pages was just like, you don't understand. No one understands me. But what's crazy, I know a lot of people really like that book. So I don't know, maybe it just like wasn't hitting for me that day. The next book that I read was The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This was a 3 to 5 stars for me. I just don't think that it was super memorable. I thought the writing was kind of fun at the time. I just didn't understand why the characters were together. Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This was my first Brandon Sanderson book, and I know that this is like not really similar to any of the other books that he's read or that he's written, but I still thought that this was different than what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was a lot of fun. I loved how it was very like fairy tale legend-esque, and I feel like it's a book that I will pass down to my kids and read with them. I just thought it was so fun, and definitely like a Princess Bride vibe, which is what people have said. And I love the little twists. I didn't see them. The world building and just the world in general is just insane. Like how do you think of something like that? How do you think of an entirely new world and how it functions in the way that he did? I don't know, but I'm excited to read more Brandon Sanderson this year. Then I read Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This was a 3 to 5 stars for me. It was not terrible. And I did think that it was like funny and cute in certain times within the book. And I love the beginning. I just felt like it turned to smut kind of for no reason. It was very smut heavy, and I felt like we lost the plot a little bit along the way. So it just kind of, I don't know, it just didn't hit the spot like the first one in that series did. I was heavily influenced by TikTok to read Phantasma by Kaylee Smith, and I loved it. It was a like 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. I thought it was so fun. It reminds me, and I don't know if I'm wrong about this. I need to go back and like actually look at my books. But I swear there is a book that I read in high school called Night World, I think. I literally have the book. I just have to go find it. But it reminded me a lot of that because it deals with, and not levels of a game, but that's what it feels like. Listen, if you've read that book, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm remembering. But I love like the supernatural aspect of it. I love the characters. I love the banter. I loved where it went, and very excited for the second book. Listen, I read Summer Romance in here, and I feel like, oh, I skipped right over it. I read Summer Romance in the summer, and it was a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think the writing in here, impeccable. So easy to read, but so impactful the way she writes the characters. I think kind of looking at the cover, you're expecting like a, you know, loosey-goosey fun time read. But I think that this book has a lot of great underlying themes about motherhood and grief and dealing with the way that we kind of lose ourselves in our lives. And it was just so good. I am very interested in reading more of this author's books for sure. The next few books, I don't remember a whole lot about, if I'm being completely honest. I read Truly, Madly, Deeply, and that was a 3 out of 5 stars. I remember this book being way longer than it needed to be, but kind of icky with the age difference at first. I kind of just acted like there wasn't an age difference. The next book was Hate Mail. This one, I remember kind of being infuriating because I don't understand why the author plotted the book this way. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, which is generous for sure. I never really cared too much about it, but I did kind of push myself just to see like what would happen in the end. It was pretty obvious like what the twist was supposed to be from the get-go, and that was just... Then I read The Fake Wedding Project. This was also a 3 out of 5 stars. The writing itself, Nothing to write home about. The story was fun though. I liked the main characters together. I just felt like we didn't have a whole lot of time with them together. I read The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I feel like a lot of people start with this book for their first Ashley Poston book, so I kind of felt out of the loop. And so I finally got to it. It was a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. I cried in it. I thought it was just literally, I don't understand how she writes like the most cliche, perfect love stories with magic realism in her books. Because it's not like cliche in a bad way, it's like cliche in the greatest way. I don't know how else to explain it. It's so much fun. The next one that I read was not exactly a small town romance. I do not remember what this book is at all. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next one that I read was Caraval. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. It was very like whimsical. There were definitely a lot of twists in here. I love how the book was set up and it flowed really smoothly. I felt very much what the main character feels at the end of this book with everything that happens. And I think that that was hard going into the second book with how you feel, but like I think that's the point, you know? I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think that I was very involved in this book and I really liked it. Okay, so I read the Windsor series by Katharina Mora, and then I was thinking, like right around Christmas, hey, it would be fun to read something like that again and see. So I went to see if she has any other books, and she does. So I picked up Until You, which is the Off Limits series by her. It was a 1 out of 5 stars. So it gave me such a bad ick for the characters. The nicknames that they gave each other. No. Hated the reasoning behind the third act breakup. That felt kind of, I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And I don't think that they had any chemistry. It definitely scared me off from reading any more of her books, to be honest. It was that bad. Then I read Rook and Rebel. This was a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was actually so much fun. It's kind of like it's not mafia, it's like a gang romance kind of deal. I thought that the writing was actually really good, which was surprising for me because a lot of like the mafia gang type romances I pick up on Kindle Unlimited are just like very writing. This one surprised me. And I was hoping that the second book was out because I would have just like stumbled right into it, but it's not yet. So that kind of sucks. Good vibes, found family. What else can I say? I finally got around to reading Hexed by Emily McIntyre. That's her latest book in the Never After series. I don't know if that's gonna be the last one. I want to say it is, but I'm not too sure. But I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was very long. It was like, I think over 500 pages, and that was on Kindle, so I mean it's probably different in print, but I didn't really get why it was. I love the characters together, especially with how crazy they are, and there's a lot of craziness and violence in that book. It was very much like a slow burn, and I just really enjoyed the writing in this book. And because I read Hexed, I thought I would look and see if Emily McIntyre had any other books out. And she did. There's a Sugar Lake series, so I went and read the first one, Beneath the Stars. Listen, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know why this would be a series. I didn't like how it was split up because a lot of the book, like I would say the first like 25% of the book was about these two characters like as kids or like in their younger years in high school, and their relationship like then and like how they acted towards each other. I just felt like it took up too much of the book and I didn't really like it. I could understand like little snippets here and there to reference, but it just felt like a lot. Cute but very lusty, I would say. And then to finish off the year, I read Off to the Races and a Photo Finish by Elsie Silver. Off to the Races I gave 4 to 5 stars. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I think that the two characters together in that made a lot of sense. But in the second one, A Photo Finish, mainly because the main male character was so grumpy, like, he didn't need to be like that, you know? But I did really like the main female character. So if I could just get a book with her and without the man, sure, I would take it. That is to say, I talked about it earlier in this video, way back at the beginning, but I read Assistant to the Villain at some point in 2024, I swear. I just don't know where. And this was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. This is so fairy tale, fantasy, and romance, but it's like so lighthearted and fun and funny. It's funny as hell. And I loved it. Would definitely recommend. If you have been thinking about it, would definitely recommend. I love all the side characters. I think that they add so much to the story. And this is definitely a book that I would reread. over and over again. And that's it. We made it through. That was a lot. I've been talking a lot. My like head is starting to get congested again, and I'm tapping out. That's it. That's all I have. Let me know if you read any of these books in 2024 or if you think you're going to in 2025. I'm excited to see you in the next one. Bye.